one of the joys of being 57 was I never thought I'd live to be this long in some ways. But it also like it gets you enough perspective. So what I will say is this: I spent, my teen years hiding in the closet. I was, like I said, I was very involved in church, but I was more concerned about my reputation. So instead of trusting God's love and God's grace, because I absolutely believe we are created exactly who we're supposed to be created to be, and we are all children of God, and God does not make mistakes. So, this message, if there's one thing I'd like people to take away, you are loved.
Welcome to the Queer Quest podcast, your beacon of light and sprinkle of glitter in the queer community. I'm your host, 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐬, CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for queer individuals. And together, we're embarking on a journey of transformation. Each week, we bring you a new training topic or connect you with visionary queer leaders in healing and coaching, diving deep into conversations that inspire growth, celebrate diversity, and empower you to live authentically. So wherever you are, settle in and let's get ready to unlock the vibrant potential within. This is where your quest begins. Hello, you fabulous souls, and welcome to this week's episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐬, and this week on the podcast, we have a very special guest, Don Young, a former pharmaceutical executive living the American dream who flipped the script, has changed it all up, and is now into the world of spirituality and writing. Welcome, Don, to the podcast. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me, 𝐘𝐨𝐮. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here.
So glad to have you. So, pharmaceutical executive. Tell us, what is a pharmaceutical executive living the American dream? Kind of give us a bit of a backstory of that, yeah?
Sure. Well, let's see. I'm going to just we'll go as back or as far as we want with things. So a little bit about kind of my background. I grew up in the Midwest, adopted as a child, and then my parents realized they could make babies on their own. So I'm the only one in my family who is adopted.
Wow.
Great childhood, involved in church, scouts, kind of the whole thing. And then when I realized, and we can talk about this a little later, that I did not see a path for me in ministry in the 1980s for you know why.
Of course,
That
being gay in the 80s is not going to
being
be
gay is
helping you
not not
in the church at all. No,
exactly
yeah, totally. Yeah.
exactly, especially in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So basically what I did was I was done with school. I wanted to teach. I thought, okay, well, I'll look that as an option. So I started, I finished my master's degree in theology, but I did want to teach kind of college level. So I applied at University of Minnesota, where I was living at the time, was not accepted, had these student loans coming due. I had no one to forgive them for me. So what I needed to do was find a job. So I took a job in a hospital working for their continuing medical education department. And
Mm.
that's kind of how I fell into this whole crazy world of pharmaceutical marketing. It's not like you're a kid and you're like, what do you want to do when you're older? I'm like, I want to be a pharmaceutical marketing executive, not one of those things you think about. So I started out in the continuing medical education department, and basically what that was physicians, healthcare professionals need to get a certain number of credits every year to maintain their license, because medicine changes over time, which is probably a good thing as we learn more. And then what happened was I was doing medical education, and then there was this company in Chicago. I decided I want to move back to Chicago at that time. I had done my exile for my family already and was like, okay, we're ready to kind of reconcile. I'm sure a lot of people have been there with that. And so I took a job at a for-profit agency that did medical education. And this was in the 90s. So I had moved from kind of a nonprofit environment where the physicians were the ones working the hospital, people that I saw on a daily basis, to now working for this for-profit. And then from this for-profit, what happened is there were changes, and people were like, well, maybe we shouldn't have for-profits getting pharmaceutical money to train physicians, because maybe there could be undue influence with it. maybe. So what happened was then I moved to something what was called medical communications, which was kind of this hybrid between science and advertising. And then eventually, somehow I just ended up managing an advertising agency where our clients were pharmaceutical companies. So, I tell people I sell drugs is what I did for
So,
a living.
yeah, because I was thinking about this when I found out that about you. Was this like, and don't take this the wrong way, is this what
No,
people would
no, no,
call
not at all.
a pill pusher kind of thing? Like they
Yeah,
pushing.
yeah,
I've seen the documentaries on the Netflix where they talk about the people who will go around to the doctors and they'll do things to make them sell more of this one, because if they get a quota,
yes.
then as an executive you get a certain limit, you then make more commissions, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly. And the crazy thing about it is that the and when I talk about this, the rest of the world, this direct to consumer advertising only happens in the United States and New Zealand. Why New Zealand? I don't know. The United States, yeah, I can understand that. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened. And then here in the United States, it's just pharma advertising took off, and their pharma ads are ubiquitous across all channels in this country. They're the major sponsors of news programs, channels everywhere. It's just pharma. I
It's
think pharma's the number
it's like a
two or three.
trillion dollar industry or something,
Yeah,
right?
it's huge.
Crazy.
It's humongous. Yes, yes, yeah,
And that's why there's
absolutely.
so many people in America who are dependent on pharmaceuticals, right? Like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, as I kind of talk about it in my book, one of the things that I realized was that healthcare in the United States, at least, is not about keeping people healthy, preventing. We make money because people are sick. The whole system is built around
Corrupt.
that.
It's corrupt around that for sure. Yes, yes.
Exactly. Which it makes sense. These are for-profit companies. Some of the work they do is obviously outstanding and great, but they're still run by human beings who, at times, we tend to not put the interest of our neighbors in front of ourselves.
Oh
We
yeah,
make it about
yeah, totally.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like how I ended up in pharmaceutical advertising. And then I had an epiphany of sorts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, so you were doing that for a while, then what led to the shift and the change? And like, because of course, like you would have seen it all, I'm sure, doing
Right,
this. Yeah.
right.
About
Yeah,
that.
watching documentaries like Crime of the Century and some of the other ones. Purdue Pharma was actually one of our clients, the ones that pushed OxyContin. So
Didn't want to ask about it, but I was curious because I watched the Netflix show and I was just like mortified because I mean, I don't live in the States. I've
yeah,
heard about it, but then when you watch something like that,
yeah,
it breaks my heart because I am a big believer in non-medicated ways of therapy and
yep,
helping people.
yeah.
And seeing some of that stuff really like broke my heart because people actually believe all this, some of the stuff that is told to them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it caused real problems, real damage to families, to individuals, to communities. We're still dealing with a drug problem in this country, both legal and illegal, like never before in time.
Yeah.
With so, yeah, I'm with you, and I think when I had my spiritual awakening, I was just like, I can't be part of this machine anymore. It just, there's better things to do with your life than marketing pharmaceutical drugs. That was my conclusion. It's not a judgment of others. There's lots of great people that I
Agree.
know
Yeah.
that are in marketing, but for me, it was kind of my own epiphany that I can't do this anymore with things.
Fair enough.
So
And so then talk to us. You had a spiritual awakening. Tell us what
yeah,
happened around that time and how does that relate to you being a gay man as well? Or is that separate? You can give us a bit of a story around
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, it really is. When I one of the joys of being 57 was I never thought I'd live to be this long in some ways. But it also like it gets you enough perspective. So what I will say is this: I spent, my teen years hiding in the closet. Like I said, I was very involved in church, but I was more concerned about my reputation. So instead of trusting God's love and God's grace, because I absolutely believe we are created exactly who we're supposed to be created to be, and we are all children of God, and God does not make mistakes. So, this message, if there's one thing I'd like people to take away, you are loved. Everyone is loved, and everyone is a child of God. Even if we disagree with them, they look different from us, whatever the
And
case
that
is.
is also in the form of whatever you class as God, because people class God as
Correct.
many different types of gods, or they can class it as the universe, or
Correct.
energetics, or Mother Nature, whatever that is what I'm sure you're referring to. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And I think of God as love. Like that for me is love, and that's what sustains everything. So that's my definition of God. God is love. So as opposed to kind of trusting God when I was younger and as a teenager, I was like, I got to protect my reputation, because if people find out I'm gay, in the 80s, I was in Boy Scouts and church, and like all that goes away with
And
things.
also the whole thing around AIDS and everything was big in the 80s as well.
Correct.
So they look at you
Correct.
with that extra level of fear, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And that was the time, to your point, of growing up. I remember when my parents finally found out, the first reaction was, "Oh, you're going to die of AIDS." I'm like, what? How did we even get, like, I'm not even, okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a crazy time. They had the moral majority here in the United States. It was a bad time. Anyway, so it was all about protecting my reputation. When I was in graduate school at Pittsburgh, it kind of came to a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm creating all this deceit to people I love, to myself. It's not how to live your life, and so I really wrestled with this, and I was like, no, this is who I am, and this is who God made me to be. I think what happened at that point was I was so exhausted with having to defend who I was, playing the game, that I was just like, you know what? I'm done with religion. I didn't understand that religion is not God.
And
Spirituality is
so many
not
people
religion.
in this world deal with religious trauma, especially people in
Correct.
the queer community, right? It's one of the biggest traumas out there that I would say that people have when that are in our community, is dealing with that religious trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So basically, then I was just like, okay, well, I have this job. I started making money, and then I'm like, I just went like all things gay. Like, moved into a gay neighborhood. All my friends were gay. Like,
Yeah,
everything just came about being gay at that point,
I get you.
which
You go
which
from
was fine.
completely stuck in the closet to saying,
Right,
"Hey, bitches, I'm here."
right,
Yeah,
right. But we're more than just sex. Like, I'm more than just gay. It's a big part of who I am, but that's not the only part of who I am.
agree.
So anyway, what I fell into was, then I started making more and more money. I stopped going to church. I started having any sort of connection with God. I stopped reading. I stopped writing. I just kind of turned my brain off, because, hey, I just wanted to have fun at that
Yeah,
point.
and you've been rejected by the church for who you
Right.
are. So I can see why you would shun them and go, look, hey,
Yeah.
like, if this is what you're going to give me and this is what I can get, I'm going to take this every single day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'd rather laugh with the sinners and cry with the saints, so to speak.
Agree.
So anyway, but what I realized was, because I had hid my heart when I was in the closet, I disconnected my heart from my head. And so as I was getting deeper and deeper into the world of materialism, and just really, it was about pleasure and having a good time, I still had this emptiness and this feeling of disconnection, and there was something not happening in my life. And I think part of it was I had built these walls around my heart to make sure no one kind of could get into it. And doing that not only cut me off from the love of other people, because I was just not a very pleasant person to be around, but also, God's love for me. I couldn't have my own kind of self-acceptance. Yes, I was gay and I was out of the closet and comfortable with it, but I still wasn't really loving myself.
Because you see the such a, it has to be two different things. If it's religion
Yes.
is God and I am gay, then
Yeah.
I'm not accepted by religion, I'm not accepted by God. So then there's a big part of you that feels again that you can't love yourself, which is why it can
Correct.
cause trauma for so many people in our community.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, I started to associate my identity with, a high paying job, the American dream,
I get you.
success,
I get you.
all the stuff that we're sold in our lives. And I was a very unhappy person, very
I
unhappy person.
I can relate to that. Same here. Before I came and did what I'm doing, I had led a team of 300 people in corporate, had a big paying job, and yeah, I was defining myself by the success of that and what. Again, what people would see me as, oh, look, he's doing really well in life. I'll show you as a gay man, I can be successful, blah, blah, blah. All of those kinds of stories you tell yourself to kind of almost mask this thing that we would see as a deficiency being gay. Look, hey, look,
Right.
think that. Well, look at all these other things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But
But we're going to
inside,
overachieve on
yeah,
everything else.
inside
Yeah.
there's a lot of still, like I said, pain, all, unresolved emotions related to
Yeah.
other experiences, and also part of who you are and accepting who you are as well.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you've cut your heart off from kind of the world and the people around you.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that's a bit of a curmudgeon, so to speak, and that's probably a nice word to use at times. So what happened was I lost my high paying corporate job. I had been with this particular company 16 years, and I was 52 at the time. This was the only world I knew. And I was devastated because I believed in, well, if you work hard, you'll always be rewarded for it. It's about
Mhm.
meritocracy, and it's all, it's all about your own kind of initiative. And that's bullshit. It's just it's not that way. Um, so I my partner and I moved to Las Vegas, and I just like I needed to start over with my life and find something new. So we were in Vegas. I did a little bit of freelancing, took another job with another company. They were again still supporting pharmaceuticals. Um, but I kept realizing how unhappy I was, how miserable I was doing this job. This was now we had lived through COVID, the pandemic, and all kinds of crazy stuff that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, with just the world shutting down, with things. And in my head, I'm like starting to question, well, why is this happen? Why is this happen? And that was the part of me that was like when I still had a relationship to God, because I think if you're a spiritual person, you're questioning, you're asking about life all the time and how things happen. And basically, one night I was by myself at home, and I just broke down. I was listening to the Johnny Cash recordings, American Sessions, which are it's really beautiful poetry. And I just broke down and cried, and I realized I'm none of these things. I'm none of these labels. I'm not, this isn't, I can't have faith in the American dream. For me, it's God. It's only God, and that's all that matters. And so all these labels that I had carried with me all during my lifetime to define who I was no longer made sense to me. The only thing that did make sense is that I'm loved and I'm a child of God. And with that,
The truth
this
is that, yeah,
huge
you are loved. You are
weight.
a child of God. And, everyone out there, like I said, is a child of God or whatever form you want
Right.
to that for. And
Correct.
like I said, you know, when you've been almost stripped away from seeing that or believing that because of your experience in life, it really is going to affect you internally. And then that's probably why
Yeah.
you need a breakdown moment. And we're going to take a quick break here in just a second
Sure,
here.
sure.
I remember when we get back, I really want to go deeper into that kind of moment where you had the breakdown and then what came after it. So we'll just take a quick break and we'll be
Great.
right back to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
In a world where every journey is unique, one path shines brightly for the queer community. Introducing QueerQuest, the first of its kind personal development platform designed exclusively for us, by us. At QueerQuest, we understand the multifaceted journey of queer identity. That's why we've created a space where you can explore, learn, and grow with the guidance of queer experts from around the globe. Whether you're seeking to enhance your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual well-being, QueerQuest is your gateway to transformation. Imagine embarking on quests tailored to your journey of self-discovery, finding community, and unlocking your queer excellence. QueerQuest offers online courses, coaching programs, and soon workshops, seminars, retreats, and festivals, all designed to empower you to live your best life. Ready to start your adventure? Join us at www.queerquest.vip to become part of a movement towards personal and collective greatness. Sign up today to join the waitlist and be the first to know when we launch. QueerQuest, where your journey of self-discovery and transformation begins. Don't just dream of a life filled with pride and purpose, make it your reality with QueerQuest. Visit www.queerquest.vip now. Your quest awaits. Awesome. And we are back with Don Young, and we were just talking about your spiritual awakening. So I'd love for you to continue that part of like you had the breakdown and then what came from that.
So after I spent the night kind of just crying and coalescing, but you know, it wasn't sadness. It was I can't describe it anything more than just this huge weight was lifted from my shoulders because you know I grew up believing that I had to take care of everything. I was in charge, which is crazy to think we're ever in charge of that
Anything.
much in our lives. Exactly. But when you hold on to that or thinking you always have to be right, it's a terrible burden to carry.
Because you have
Um,
to, I think a lot of queer people feel like they have to be in control because we've had to
yeah,
hide who we are and like we walk around and we don't know what other people think or accept. And so we try to
yeah,
be in control of ourselves because it's a safety mechanism as well. So
yeah,
I get understand why you would have felt that way.
yeah. And we start caring way more about what other people think and things like that. And then again, especially to, you know, growing I was always concerned about what other people think because I didn't want them to think, you know, that I was gay.
And so you were
Um,
controlling the narrative almost of what other
correct,
people saw. So yeah, huge
correct.
amounts of
And
that. That
that's
happens.
exhausting to do in your
Oh,
life.
oh yes, it is. Totally
Yeah.
exhausting.
So I had the breakdown. I listened to the Johnny Cash recordings again and again, and then I slept. I slept probably the best I've ever slept in my life. Like all this was gone off my
You
shoulders.
let it
All
go.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, with things. So you know, I started. I called my parents. I called some friends of mine, and people were like amazed. They're like, wow, you sound really happy. Like, what happened? And so I kind of talked through it some and you could just sense this joy that was in life and this sense of gratitude. And you know, things that have happened since and part of it was yes, rediscovering writing, thinking, but just stopping to appreciate things in life that I never did before, you know, like I'm on the phone with my parents. I'm like, "There's a hummingbird outside. It's really amazing and it's beautiful." And da, da. And I think they were like 10 years ago, they would have thought, "Who are we talking? Like, that's not Don. He doesn't care about animals or nature. Like, it's about business with him." And I just rediscovered all the beauty that surrounds us.
Mm.
That's not about money. That's not about anything else. I started to volunteer my time um, to kind of give back, because I don't think you can talk about love as only words. You have to have actions to that as well. And so I decided I can't go back to pharma. I feel like my destiny now is to write this book and to talk about love and to share my experience and to let people know that they're like, we don't have to live a life of desperation or about stuff. You can have a wonderful, great life. You will usually always have that when it's never about stuff, So it's just, it's things like looking at a sunset or, watching my cat do like crazy things, that I'm just like, damn, he is really happy because he's just enjoying what he has now,
Yeah, it sounds a bit
rolling
like
around.
being present in the present moment, just accepting, and
Exactly.
instead of spending your mind everywhere else, you're in the present
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I turned 57 last year. I'm using my retirement savings to fund this crazy, it's not crazy in a, just this, I don't know, ministry mission, whatever it is that I'm on with God right now. Um, and and so that's kind of where I'm at with things,
So tell us about the book. I'm pretty sure you said it's coming out soon. It's what's called Finding God in Vegas. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's not published yet. So I'm looking for that, but some folks have read it. It's called Finding God in Vegas, and it's a personal memoir, but it takes the reader kind of through the journey of, here's this kid that grew up the American dream. I was surrounded by so much love in my life, and yet I couldn't see it in front of me. I couldn't see it in the world around me, and part of it is that there were times where there wasn't a lot of love, and it was a crazy being gay in the 80s and growing up with that. It was difficult for my family when I came out, and we came to terms with that, with being gay. And I think the part for them that was the hardest was not so much the gay thing. Like, we got through that. It was just all the years of like lying and deceit, and how, again, not an unusual experience where I think my parents were like, you didn't know how much we loved you, did you? And yeah. So I want people to know already, no matter where they're at in their life or who they are, gay or not gay, but you shouldn't have shame around who you are. That just it's not how, that's not about love, and you need to love yourself, you know, with things.
So curious to know, like, we've talked about like where you were and you're struggling with I guess the self-hatred or the
Yeah.
struggles around all that stuff. And you've gone to this place. Outside of the enlightenment, I'm curious, have you done any kind of therapy or coaching to like support you in the journey of getting to where you are today?
Um, the only reason I chuckle is because I was talking about this recently with a friend of mine, and he's around my age. He went through therapy, not gay, straight, and I think for me, writing this memoir, man, that was therapy. I can't tell you how many boxes of Kleenex I went through as I was like reliving this and trying
Yeah.
to record this. It was cathartic and therapeutic at the same time. And I think for me, it was just that's how I needed to work out kind of my journey with things. Um, but the writing was definitely therapeutic. It's still therapeutic for me. Um, especially as an introvert. It's crazy. I can I'm comfortable with writing stuff down and sharing it with the whole world, but it's kind of being in front of the whole world, in person, it's a little more intimidating for an introvert. But but I think there's something there with the story, and my hope is a lot of people can relate to it, or find meaning for themselves in it. And I try to write it in a way that it's accessible to, you don't have to be gay to kind of get this book. Um, it's you don't have to be any sort of particular faith. If you're atheist, read fine. Like I say in the beginning, everyone's welcome to this story, because you'll probably find pieces of that story in your own life as well. Because I do believe at the end of the day, there's way more that connects us. Like we are so connected, and we shouldn't be dividing ourselves anyway.
Yes, sorry for a second, I was muted. But yes, no, I completely hear you there, and I'm curious to understand where did you come up with the title, and for what reason? Because I'm assuming you might understand that it could sound like a little bit of a controversial title to some people who would have a connotation of what Vegas is in their mind. So walk us down the journey of coming up with that title.
Yeah. So the reason with the title, and I do kind of talk about how I ended up with that in the book, was I think for me there were two events that happened kind of right before my spiritual awakening. One was we had a cat, and I had to put him to rest. He was in great suffering. And the crazy thing about it is that this cat got to my heart more than any human could. Um, I remember when we got the cat, and the only reason we got the cat is because my boyfriend, who's now my husband, wanted it. And I'm like, well, whatever he wants, of course, because I love him. You know how that goes. I'm sure we've all been there. We do crazy things for people. So we had this cat, and I remember my parents coming over one time, and the cat's walking around, and they're like, aren't you the same person that said animals are dirty? Like, this is crazy, but this cat it won my heart. So when I had to put him down, just it was terrible. And anyone who's had to do that, I'm sure they know. So anyway, getting back to the story. So part of it was that the place where that happened is near our house, and so I go by it very often. And when I go by, I give him a little kiss. And then the other crazy thing is that there's a funeral home near our house too, and sometimes you'll see smoke coming out. But you know what that means when there's smoke is that was actually that was a person, that was a living, breathing person, just like you and me, who's now not here. And when you start to think about that stuff, especially as you age, you can't help but to think about, well, what has this been all about? What is my life about? Things like that. So then I had kind of my spiritual awakening, and I thought to myself, and I'm getting the point in the title, was I don't go to church, but I know God was with me when I said goodbye to my cat. I know God is with us when we leave this world. So of course God is in Vegas. God is everywhere with things. And so I just thought it's, for someone who is so materialistic in his adult years, there's a certain irony of finding spirituality in Sin City. So
I get it. And I assumed it was something like that. And I wanted for the listeners to hear that, because again, I'm sure some people will be thinking, oh, okay, that sounds a bit controversial, but that's all good. I'm curious then also to understand more about, you went through this massive shift in your life. Tell us about how that affected you in your relationship with your partner, because I'm assuming, you shifting made a massive shift. There would have had to have been some shifts within your relationship as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that we had a bit of a dysfunctional relationship in some ways. We love each other very much, but we would have fights, and then I would chase him, and then he would feel bad. That I was chasing him, and it just wasn't. But for whatever thing, like we love each other deeply. I think what happened with that relationship is I realized the first relationship in my life is with God, and I need to take care of myself. Um, and so our relationship shifted in terms of kind of that dysfunction. It just ended. Like it just ended because I wasn't going to play game. We weren't going to play games of chasing each other anymore. So I would say we're closer than we've ever been. But you know, it's a different. It's different for us. You know, he sees a different person than he saw before. And though in some ways I do think he was one of the few people that he could see inside my heart still. Like he could see that light of like love that was there. So yeah, so 15 years now and going. So
15 years and going, and that's the thing. As you said, marriages, it's about
yeah,
continuing to choose people every single day through the
yeah,
ups and downs, the shifts, the changes in people, because like I
yeah,
said, at the end of the day, there's
yeah,
love.
yeah. And he sees the happiness, the joy that I have. And that is contagious, you know. It really is contagious. It's kind of like when you see people, if you smile at them, or if you say hi to them, it, you know, of course, everyone wants to be acknowledged, and you know. So
Totally.
anyway,
Yeah, lovely. And so before we leave today, if there was one message that you could send out there, and be aware that, of course, the majority of the audience listening is from the queer community, what would
right.
you like those people to know?
I would like them to know that they are loved by God. Don't let anyone try and take your spirituality away from you. Shame you for who you are as a person, who God has created, and just try and find ways to create more love in your world, not only for other people but for yourself as well. And that will, that gives you a life that is so much more rewarding. So that would be my 2 cents there.
Love is the ultimate answer, it sounds
It
like.
is. It
Beautiful.
is.
Well, Don, where can people find you? Have you got anything you wanted to promote or share with them
Yeah.
that you can take moving forward?
Yeah. So if they want to find out more, they can go to my website, donaldharoldyoung.com, DonaldHarold young.com. I have a daily devotion. I have a blog up there, more short stories, and my hope is to be out and talking with other fabulous people like yourself. So
Beautiful. And I'll link below that website. So if anyone is curious, they can link straight to it from the podcast.
great. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, Don, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I love hearing your story, your journey, and I'm sure so many people out there in our community can relate to so many different parts of it. And I look forward to, the success that comes from the book. And I trust and believe that the message will help so many people out there. So thank you for doing what you're doing, Don.
Thank you. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you. All right, everyone else, thank you so much for being here. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. Bye for now. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards love and happiness? Introducing the 21-day 𝐘𝐨𝐿 Guide to Love and Happiness. This isn't just a course, it's a pathway to discovering your true self, overcoming challenges, and embracing happiness. Join hundreds of gay men who found joy and freedom. Learn from Cristiano Green, a coach with 20 years experience and a journey like yours. For a limited time, get this life-changing course at 75% off with a 100% risk-free guarantee. There's nothing to lose, but so much to gain. Your new life is just a click away. Enroll in the 21-day 𝐘𝐿 He-Man's Guide to Love and Happiness today. Visit theglobalpridecollective.com and start your journey towards a happier, more fulfilled you.